Whatever you do, don't run. Today I'm taking a look at the new DC Multiverse Flashpoint Flash to see if it's the best Barry Allen action figure ever made. And don't worry, there's going to be plenty of head swaps. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Starting off with the packaging, and we have our extra wide Build-A-Wave box. Since it's a store exclusive, that also makes it a gold label. Down here we can see that we're collecting to build Cyborg. On the side we see this is Flash from Flashpoint, but honestly you can call it whatever you want. It's just a nice classic comic book Flash, and we all know it. On the back we get some big comic art of Cyborg, a key of what parts come with what figure, and honestly, kind of needless instructions on what part goes where. Oh, the head goes on top! Down here we see the other figures in the wave. I have reviewed Aquaman, but not Superman, and based on that silhouette it looks like we're finishing out the wave with Wonder Woman. For those who want it, here's the UPC. I know he's been hard to find, but based on the words gold label and unmasked, I have a feeling we're going to be getting a basic version of him very soon. As for the figure in hand, for packaging, I'm giving Flashpoint Flash 1 whole point. Moving on to presentation, and Barry stands at 7 inches on the dot. The main selling point for this figure is the unmasked head and the ability to swap it with a masked one. But since most of us are going to display him with the mask on, that's how we're going to be looking at him throughout the video. Fear not though, we'll be revisiting this dashing fellow during playability. From the top, and I like this head sculpt very much. The wings on the sides aren't overdone, and there's even some wrinkles in the mask to make it look a little bit more real. Additionally, a smiling hero is a very much appreciated change of pace. As for the body, that's actually reuse. It was built on Blue Beetle. Since his gloves were painted on, these ones are too. He also has all new boots. Looking at Blue Beetle, there's a black band over here, but looking closer, they actually went one step beyond. The red and the yellow parts are completely separate molded pieces, so theoretically they could swap this out for other boots and make additional characters. Come on, Hal. Given how often they just paint over John Kent's boots, I'm really grateful for that. I predicted this is going to be the standard Flash in my collection for some time to come, but I do have a couple of quick notes. One, the rotator cuffs are really loose, and I do wish that the emblem had been a sculpted piece. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind when logos are just painted onto a figure. For example, it would work fine on Green Lantern, but that yellow lightning bolt over a white circle can sometimes get lost in the shuffle, so the shadows cast by making it three-dimensional really do help it to pop. The only other alternative would be to paint the black outlines around it, and I've got to be honest, I've never really cared for that. Most especially with Superman. I may try to find an extra Kid Flash and steal his. Anyway, flipping him around, and here's Barry from the back. Minor quibbles aside, this is everything I've ever wanted out of a Flash action figure. For presentation, I'm giving this Barry Allen 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and it's the craziest thing, but the head's removable, allowing you to see the dumbbell joint underneath. Using that joint, and Flash can look up this far down, pretty decent tilt, high, and all the way around. Thanks to a combination of swivel hinge and rotator cuff, Flash can raise his arm this high. He can also move his arm forward and back. Move it all the way down the arm, and he has McFarlane style wrist balls. Those allow for swivel, hinging up and down, and hinging side to side. Moving to the middle, and the Flash has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. He can arch back this far, which is really good. Hello! And he can hunch forward this far, which is, well, let's just say he's doing the best he can. Really great tilt though, and twist. Below the lightning bolt belt, and Barry has McFarlane style hips. He can kick this high and do a perfect split. Very nice amount of twist in the hip, and then moving down he's got double jointed knees, toe articulation, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. If there's one thing you want in a good Barry Allen, it's articulation. Fortunately, you'll be running yourself ragged figuring out all the different poses you can get this Flash into. For posability, I'm giving the Flash 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and Flash comes with a trading card and a figure stand. I don't comment on this a lot, but I really do like this artwork, and if you want to learn more about the Flash, you can pause here. This is a Build-A-Wave, so he comes with some parts, in this case the legs of Cyborg. They've been cast in marbleized plastic, but there's some nice painted detail underneath to bring out some of the major seam lines. Some, not all. The back of the calf is kind of streaky, so I'm not sure if it's supposed to be charred or if this is just a different color. Deadpool, is that you? Little red light for the knee. Big old chunky shoe with some treads. Putting them side by side Barry, we can get a sense of just how big this Cyborg is going to be. Unfortunately, I really didn't like the Aquaman, so I chose not to keep him, meaning I no longer have the torso. Of course, one thing you might not know is that the head's removable and swappable. Okay, I'm done with this this joke. You'll have to forgive me because I'm really excited by this. Heretofore, all the DC Multiverse Unmasked options have been separate figures you had to buy. The fact that they also included the drop-down hood for the mask is another wonderful touch. As for the head itself, it's very pleasant and easygoing. It actually does remind me a bit of Grant Gustin. Really great painted detail in the hair, and I'm very excited to take this for a test drive during head swaps. But playability is more than just running jokes about swappable heads. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Get it? Running joke? For the first leg of my Flash collection, and here we have Spin Master, Kenner, Toy Biz, and McFarlane, the 1996 Total Justice Flash by Kenner, JLA by DC Direct, and DC Universe Classics by Mattel. Don't worry though, we'll be looking at lots more Flash figures later in the video. For a very different Flash, and here's Jay Garrick from the Golden Age, but for some other members of the Flash family, and here we have the oversized Impulse, Kid Flash, whose colors match up really well, and then veering over to some villains, and here we have Reverse Flash. I'm pretty happy with this one, but I wouldn't mind an Ebert on this sculpt. Here we have Dark Flash, also known in the comics as Black Flash, Godspeed, which admittedly looks a bit over-designed compared to this Barry, the Injustice 2 Gorilla Grodd, and the Page Puncher's Captain Cold. For Barry's super friends, and here we have Superman, this is Angry Laser Eyes Hush in Action Comics 1000, and just because I know a lot of you guys like this one, Page Punchers. For a couple of black and gray Dark Knights, and here's DC Rebirth and 3 Jokers Batman. But if you prefer your Cape Crusader to be blue and gray, and here's Nightfall and Hush. Going over from Batman to Green Lantern, and here we have Hal Jordan from DC Essentials and by NECA. Pretty sure that NECA is going to be my Hal until McFarlane gives us an updated one. But for both an example of John Stewart and a DC Multiverse Green Lantern, here we have Endless Winter. Since this Flash is reuse of them, here's Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, lining them up, and I'm very happy with how distinct each one looks. Since we're going classic, might as well bring out Martian Manhunter. For that other DC hero with super speed, a red suit, and a lightning bolt, and here we have Shazam. For a relative scale comparison, here he is with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. You know, if you wanted me to, I could go back in time and fix that whole leg thing of yours. Nope, no. Believe me, I learned my lesson. Of course, I know the part a lot of you are the most excited to see, head swaps. First things first, and here we have DC Essentials, which up to this point has been my favorite. You'll probably need to use some sticky tack as the pegs are incompatible. Also on its own it sits too low, but as long as you're creative it scales really well. If you were curious about the McFarlane masked head on the Essentials body, here you go. Other way around, and this peg is too big for this hole, so if you want to make it work you will have to do some drilling. Next up is the DC Multiverse Rebirth version. To my eye it scales pretty well, just keep in mind it's a bit more realistic than the head that came with it. On that note, if you wanted to pull that switcheroo, here you go. The reds aren't a perfect match, but close enough. With that in mind, you could also do the other way around. Mine's got a chip on his nose, unfortunately. To me, this face screams Wally more than Barry, so I think that there's a possibility for a custom there. If you were curious how well the diapers would swap, no. Just no. Next up is Injustice 2, which is new to my collection. Technically, you can put the head up there, but the neck is way too thick, and the head is comically too small for this body. Here we have Page Punchers, so yeah, if there was anyone out there desperate to see if you can unmask that Flash, you absolutely can. Not really sure why you'd want to, or why you want this figure at all, but there you go. For a live action comparison, and here we have Grant Gustin. With a little bit of paint, this is probably the closest we're ever going to get to an unmasked TV version. Though if you were curious about the comic kit on this body, well, here you go. And then for another, here's someone who puts babies in microwaves. I am referring to the character in the movie and not the actor, but let's be honest, you'd believe it. For anyone wanting to use this as a modern comic version, or just forget about Ezra Miller, here you go. I do think the head might be just a skosh too big for this body, the comic book head less so. Throw some glossy red and gold paint on the mask and you might just have something. That said, and Carlos Sandez 6672 asked to see the Barry head on the Aquaman body. Not sure why you wanted to see this, but I guess it's cool. Or maybe you were interested in seeing a long-haired bearded Barry? I'm kidding. I know this is what you're here for, and honestly it looks even better than I expected. So much so that I think this is how I'm going to be displaying Arthur moving forward. One extra thing I wanted to try was the Marvel Legends Captain America. This scales surprisingly well, and although it doesn't click in place, I like this a lot more than the original Hasbro head. Obviously, I love that McFarlane is dabbling with swappable heads. More importantly, with this figure, our classic Justice League is one step closer to coming together. For playability, I'm giving this Flash 1 whole point. This this leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. The Flashpoint Wave is a Target exclusive and retails for $24.99. He's been popping in and out of stock on Target.com, but he's only coming to stores now, so be patient, but don't wait to grab him. If you're not fast, I have a feeling that this Flash will pass you by. For price, I'm giving this Flash 1 whole point, meaning he's finishing this race with a perfect 5 out of 5. With Nightfall Batman, this Flash, and classic Wonder Woman on the way, which Justice League character do you hope they make next? Specifically, what version of Green Lantern? Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.